my YouTube channel. I'm Liam. Finally, back-to-back good weeks. 2014, the year when I was 14 years old. I jumped another 2,000 spots to be now 8,000th. I was 14,000 2 weeks ago, so I've nearly halved that. It's just the usual way of me going about fantasy. I tend to always start slow. I don't know why, but I feel like my trading always brings me back into the season, and I hope to keep this up. Hope you all had a good week yourselves. So this is my team for this week. Rory Laird's solid in a disappointing performance by the Crows. You take 94 each week in a week where they are disappointing. He's averaging 104, so he can't do much more than that. Tom Stewart started like a house on fire with 50 in the first quarter and got his way to 100 as Sydney came back into the game. As the same with Laird, you're very pleased with your defenders scoring 100. Ridley, disappointing. That trade probably hasn't benefited me that well. I actually scored 180 from that trade through 3 games with an average of 60, and Ridley's combined for 80 of that. With Kaczynski last week backing up, Ridley's did not play with 101, but he did also come in as a handicapped and loophole option last week. So he's done 2 things where he actually hasn't influenced anything, but paying 700k for that is probably not what he's there for. Hopefully he can bounce back and get back to his first few rounds of form. He has lost a bit of cash since I've picked him up as well, but as he's a long-term keeper, it's not much of a worry. It's just a worry that other people get to pick him up at a cheaper price. Jaden Short bounced back with 105. Still only averaging 84 in the last 3, but any 100 from a defender is good. And I'd rather that than a 60 that is 60, 70, which he's been struggling to get past in the last few weeks. Markov, again, he probably won't be a keeper long term, but he's scoring a solid amount. Disappointing it was against Collingwood that he could only get to 78, but that price, he's still averaging 80 in his last 3, so it's nothing to be fully concerned about. Little bit the same with Cox. He's averaging 60, but he's a rookie. He's made a bit of cash for me. He probably should go next week if there are no injuries, which seemed not to be the case in these rounds. But an underrated thing for him is he provides very good flexibility, which goes under the radar in fantasy games. With his forward defence, you can flip him about and you can manipulate your team to the better, put him as a forward, put him as a defender, to place playing certain rookies or if some players out. So he does have an underrated valuability with that. Kaczynski started well, slowly got to 53, but he's making much needed coin for my team, which didn't look like at the start of the season, but very nice now. The mids turned it on this week. I've seen a lot of teams with amazing midfields. Taranto on fire with 140, starting to be a good starting pick after a slow start. McRae 113, you take it any day of the week. Not his 140s, but he's nothing to be sneezed about. Merritt a little disappointing with 103, but he did get tagged a little bit in that game. So to get to triple figures is a good effort. McCluggage, I'm very pleased with this trade in. Without Neil, he looks to be number 1 Brisbane player. 119, and hope he continues his form. And he's a nice little pod at 2%. So averaging 118 in his last 3, and I see him being a keeper. And he's made a bit of coin for me. So people, if they want him, will have to get him for a little bit more expensive. Stevenson, I just flipped around I'll tell you a bit later why I put Stevenson and Phillips in the midfield. But no matter where they are, they still scored solidly. I want to get rid of Phillips so badly, but at 560 and 70 is not good enough. I'll see what pops up, but he'll probably be traded this week. Stevenson's still solidly averaging 85. I picked him up for 500 odd, so you can't overly complain about that. And he seems to score, as I said, scores heaps in bunches and then goes disappearing. So he does have a pretty safe floor with that not going on. Jordan in absolutely amazing. Like Powell until later, he's got a great role. I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. A good pick to the buyers. Berry got his way to 54 in the end. Solid rookie score, and certainly just take it and run. He had to be played this week with a few players missing. So yeah, Scott 45 again, solid. So bit of trade issues this week. Grundy was amazing. Take his captain, score of 119, much better than all the Gorn owners that bumped me up a bit. I had to bring in a ruck this week with Flynn out. I didn't trade Flynn. I moved him to the utility spot, but I traded. I can't even remember who I traded this week to Tilthorpe so I could have a ruck playing. He made 26k. I did bring him in the basis of having just ruck cover more than point scoring ability, hoping Flynn might play a little bit more, but with Mumford playing extensively well, who knows if Flynn... I feel like he's still played the odd game around, but hopefully Thilthorpe makes a little bit of cash for me. Played a little bit in the ruck in that last quarter, probably because they were getting smashed and to get him into the game, but I feel like he can average around that 50 mark, which would be handy if Flynn can play. But decent cover. Zeeble brought in this week, scored a solid 100. Slowed down a bit at the end, but you again cannot complain with that. The funny thing with my forward line this week, with all my DPP action, this was a completely new six that I had last week. If you watched, see my team from last week, none of these players were in it. Gordon, midfield, Powell's in my midfield, Warner was in my midfield, Bergman was in my defence, Robertson was in my midfield. So that's a pretty funny thing to see, DPP, all this DPP action. Gordon, 61. I wanted to trade him, but I couldn't with Flynn being out. So that had to do. Had to keep him in. He scored a solid 61, which you can't complain. Powell, incredibly amazing. Nearly with the lack of forwards, he's nearly a keeper for a long, long time. He could nearly end up with F6 if he slowly builds into his role. Won't be surprised if you see him round 20, round 21, we're still in people's teams. He's averaging a 93 in the last three, which is up there with with most premium forwards. Warner keeps chugging along, 74, amazing. Bergman, great pickup from last week. I love his role on the wing / halfback. He gets some nice easy +6s. And like Stevenson tends to score in bunches, which is very nice to watch when it actually happens. And Robertson, just a solid 44. I do like his actual role. Just couldn't get his hands on too much of the ball, but his role is what I've looked at, and it's a positive for fantasy scores. Rowe he's not going to go him up anymore, I don't think. But 38 is just a player that's a handy player to have. He seems to be playing every week just as cover if there is a late out or an out. But he will be traded out soon. Flynn's stuck in there on my bench. Hopefully, he gets a game. So, hope you all had a decent week. And moving up the ranks, I'll be back on Thursday with my preview of round 8. So, till then, have a good week. I'll see you then.